Hey, I wanted to share with you today why surrendering to your inner seasons can be a beautiful way to bring more harmony and balance into your life. And why is this important? Well, this is really important if you're someone who feels really burnt out all the time, if you feel exhausted all the time, if you've lost the funk, if you feel like you've lost a lack of desire in your life in general, or a lack of desire to have sex, or a lack of desire to be intimate with your partner. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you're wondering like who the heck you're even looking at anymore, this is truly for you, because tuning in to our own inner rhythms, our own inner seasons, and honoring our cyclical nature is so valuable for bringing that ease, that harmony, that joy, that juiciness, that receptivity back into our lives. And receptivity is a feminine principle. And when we become more receptive, we become more open to the ways in which life can really delight us. So stay with me here, because I feel like this is some really good stuff. So the first way you can look to your inner seasons is your menstrual cycle as a teacher. So if you're someone who is still in the bleeding phases of your life, I invite you to really track and start to tune into your menstrual cycle, especially if you're not on the birth control pill or any other kind of birth control, because birth control actually masks your body's regular hormonal dips and highs, I don't know, ebbs and flows. So if you're off of hormonal birth control or contraceptives, start to tune into your menstrual cycle as a teacher. So the way our menstrual cycle mirrors nature is that you can take your menstrual cycle and break it into four sort of let's say quadrants. So when you're bleeding, that period known as menstruation very much so mimics a winter season. It's very inwards, it's very cocoony, it can be kind of dark, it can be, if you're someone who's been labeled as PMSy, it can be like, it can be that sort of, that depth, that, what I'm trying to think about a word to describe winter, but where we just go like inwards. And so honoring that and realizing that that is actually a natural state for you is so liberating and so freeing, right? Like, especially if you are someone who's ever been called like, oh, she's just PMSing, or she's just bitchy because she's on her period. Excuse me. No, I think that is a teacher in itself, because often if we are feeling that rage around that time of the month, it's because we're not honoring that space of going inwards, of honoring that inner season of winter where we need rest, where we need to hibernate. So that's menstruation, winter time. Now then you would enter from your bleeding into your follicular stage of your cycle, which mirrors spring. It's that more outward energy where things are starting to grow, where things are starting to take shape. The season is changing. And then from that, you would go into ovulation, which mimics summer. That's like the blossoming, the fruitfulness, the flow, the juiciness. And then from that stage, you would enter into your loosed heel stage, which is very mimicky of autumn. It's the harvest. It's the going, it's starting to go inwards. It's the changing of the season. It's the slowing down. It's the taking stock, taking inventory. Often it's a time in our cycle where we're going to want to sew up loose ends, and where we start to go for that inward dive into winter, where we're preparing for that winter season. So knowing that your menstrual cycle can mirror these seasons can, as I say, be so liberating, and also bring a lot of harmony in your life when you learn to really honor the stages of your cycle. So for example, spring, follicular and ovulation, spring and summer are maybe the times in your cycle where you know that you're going to be really available or up for social things, where you're going to be really available or up for sexual activity. We're going to be really like outward and wanting to be in like maybe deep creation mode and that kind of thing. Versus when you're in the other ends of your cycle, the luteal phase and menstruation, where maybe what's being called for is to slow down, and you're not honoring that. And by not honoring that, you're creating more disharmony in your life and for yourself. And so it's really learning to create boundaries and to really tune in and notice where you're at. And ways you can do that is to journal daily, like day 1 of your cycle. What's your energy levels like? How's your sleep? How's your mood? Do you have any food cravings and that sort of thing? And just begin to start to map out what it is for you monthly. Because even though I've shared with you what it can look like, it's so important for you to actually honor what it looks like for you, because everyone is so unique and different. Now, if you're not someone who is still in the menstruating phase of your life, as female identified beings, we are very closely linked to the moon cycles, and the moon cycles also mimic nature. I mean, the moon is a part of nature, so to speak. But if you look at a moon cycle, when we have the new moon, when the moon is dark, that's very much like the winter season. When the moon is waxing, that's very much like spring. When the moon is full, that's very much like summer. And when the moon is waning, it's very much like fall. So if you're not still in the bleeding years of your life, you can start to notice, your ebbs and flows throughout the month in alignment to the moon and see if that correlates for you. We also have seasons in the grander scheme of our life. So, as young women, we would be in a maiden season of our life. As we get older, or maybe we enter into a marriage or a partnership, we enter into the mothering phases of our life. And just because you're in that phase doesn't mean you're not actually mothering like physical children, but you can be mothering and birthing creations into the world, work, partnerships, and so on, friendships. Life. And then we enter into the wild woman phase of our life, and that looks a lot like fall. And then we enter into our crone phase of our life in our elder years, and that looks a lot like winter. So it's so curious to look too and see in our daily lives like where we're at on the spectrum, and how that understanding can create more harmony in our life. For example, if we are in a mothering phase or a wild woman phase of our life, but we're still very much in our maiden, that can create a lot of disharmony, right? But also knowing that we have access to all of these aspects of our being anytime throughout our life too. So that's really helpful to know in terms of like how you're cycling monthly or how you're even cycling daily, right? When we look at our days can very much align with seasons too. So when we wake up, we're more likely to be in like a spring season, and then we'll enter into summer around midday, and then the fall is sort of in the afternoon when things are winding down, and into a winter season in the evening. So even though I've shared with you this blueprint for how our inner seasons can mirror the outer seasons of nature, it's so important to really honor your own unique inner rhythms and inner seasons. And why you want to do that is because it just creates so much more opening in your life. So understanding too that your relationships have seasons, understanding that your sex life has seasons, understanding that your friendships maybe have seasons. So when you start to look at the life around you, you can create more ease for yourself and understanding, and take off maybe some of the burden that you've put on yourself by thinking that everything always has to look and be a certain way. I describe it as the always way. Like it always has to be that way, when that's not true. That life is actually secular, not linear. So we've been given this message, and it's a very patriarchal lens in which a patriarchal worldwide lens, that things always have to be this way. And what we're often putting on a pedestal is that things always have to look like summer, that full bloom, that peak fruition, that blossoming, that go, go, go. But that's exhausting, and it's not the way that our bodies are designed. So we're basically fighting our inner nature, and that leads to exhaustion, burnout, lack of desire, and all the rest that I described to you at the beginning. So slowing down and beginning to understand that you don't bloom all year long. So stop forcing yourself to bloom all year long is so liberating, right? And to not compare yourself. So, seasons could be changing. We're entering into fall, but maybe you still feel like you're in summer, or maybe we're in a winter season and you're feeling really good. That's okay. That's your normal, but it's honoring what's alive for you and not comparing yourself to another. So, and again, if we look to nature, like a tiger lily doesn't compare itself to a daisy. It just keeps on shining. It just stays rooted, right? So anchoring into what's alive for you, not trying to force it to be the always way, but rather tuning into just being with what is alive for you, and then also beginning to understand how your inner seasons work, and allowing that to create more receptivity within yourself, allowing that to create more ease and more harmony for you, so that you can begin to just step into greater alignment with who it is you are and live a really juicy, turned on, and sensational life. Okay, I hope this has been helpful, and I just want to send a lot of love to you as we change these seasons from summer to fall. I know it can feel really hard to say goodbye to those beautiful long days of summer, but I really encourage you to trust in the surrendering of the changing of season. Trust in the harvest that is fall, and the container of winter that is coming, and that when you slow down and that when you rest, you create more room in that mysterious place of dark void for spring to come, for seeds to be planted in very nourished soil, for the good things that are going to come to you when the season and the pendulum swings around again. Because the more we can harvest and till the soil of our lives, the more we can plant, the more we can grow, the more we can shine, right? So there you have it, my friend. How tuning into your inner season is going to be a really beautiful way to live a really harmonious, loving, turned on life. Mwah. Bye for now.